Good evening and welcome to our third annual budget hearing for the 2008 budget. And we are very pleased to have all of you with us and also our listening audience. I'm Dee Knutson. I'm a city councilor and I'll be chairing our meeting this evening. And I would like to remind everyone that we will be, our three budget hearings will be rebroadcast this weekend, beginning on beginning tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and again Sunday morning beginning at 8 a.m. So that's just a friendly reminder to everyone who's maybe missed part of our budget hearings. Mostly this evening we will be visiting with some some divisions of our city government and also some nonprofits that do substantial work for us in our community. And I am going to run kind of a tight ship so that we can stay on track. It's probably the teacher in me, and so I really respect everyone's cooperation regarding our time slots. And I'm going to ask every presenter, I believe that you've all been told in advance that you have been given 10 minutes to speak with us. And so I encourage you to get your most important information out there first, and then give us some of the other helpful information just so that you do not run out of time, because I am really going to cut people off. And of course the counselors will have plenty of time to ask as many questions of you as they wish. And as you all know, we know quite a bit basically about all of the groups speaking tonight, so I think it's what would be really helpful is, telling us, why you really need, what you need, and maybe what collaborative efforts you've taken on this year and so forth. And so with that, I'd really like to also encourage you, when you come to the microphone, for everyone's benefit, including the public, would you please clearly identify yourself so that we know, so everyone knows who you are. And with that, we'll start with Deborah Gaikowski from our Transit Division of our Planning Department. And welcome, Deborah.
Hi, good evening. Deborah Gaikowski, Transit Planner with the City of Sioux Falls. I'll start out today. We have Transit is basically using 3.6% of the general fund in 2008. The purpose of Transit is to provide a quality transportation service oriented toward customer service, safety, reliability, personal mobility, and freedom in a cost-efficient and effective manner while having a positive social and economic impact on the community. Transit's goals for 2008 are to reduce preventable accidents by 5% from the last measurable year, to increase fixed route ridership by 2% from the last measurable year. Transit's action plans are to conduct regular safety meetings to better train drivers and to provide and maintain a high quality of service with an emphasis on customer service. The expenditures for 2008 are right around $6.6 million, which is 11.5% over 2007. The revenue projected is $2.6 million, which is 9% over the 2007 budget. So the net change basically is $4 million expected from the general fund, which is 13% over 2007. Some of the notable changes for Transit and some of the reasons for the increases, employee insurance went up considerably. Overall, it's a 43% change, which is approximately $886,000. Outside services and repairs are up to $100,000 in 2008, which is 83% change from 2007. This includes some undercoating of several buses, about 11 buses, because of their age. Vehicle parts have gone up to about $150,000, which is a 23% increase, and this is mainly due to the older buses and just the replacement parts that's required with the older buses. Can I take any questions?
Councilor Stagers.
Yes, the employee insurance. Can you say some more about that, Deb?
Yes, the health insurance itself went up 32% in 2007. In 2007, we budgeted an increase of 12%. So basically, we had to make up that 20% that we were short, plus increase of the typical 12% for the health insurance. A few of the other insurances, like dental insurance, life insurance, disability, long-term disability, they all increased just a little bit too.
The insurance, does that include payment that the employees will be making, or what's this based on? Is it like in the past, or is this the future?
This was based on, since we did do this early spring, it was based on the employees not paying anything
Not
of the
paying
health
anything.
insurance. The fact that now we've imposed the last best offer, they are paying just a small amount. It's like 13%, I believe.
So that number might be a little bit artificially high then?
Yes, it
Okay.
may be.
Councilor Brown.
Deborah, you've given us the numbers before, but can you refresh my memory on how many riders we're seeing, what the percent of ridership increase was in 2007 to date?
I can give you, like in June, you want the ridership numbers for June, or you want 2006?
Maybe 2006.
Okay.
Just in over a year, how many people are riding?
Okay, at the end of 2000, here it is. The ridership for 2006 was 930,568. That included both fixed route and paratransit. The paratransit was right at about 583,000, the fixed route 712,000 approximately.
And then those are actual rides, right? But do we have a sense of how many people are actually riding?
As far as the number of people, no, because, you've got, like you said, a ride to and a ride back, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So persons, no.
And percentage of increase over 2005?
Let's see,
Seems like it was about 14%.
it's 11.27%.
And it's been up this year as well,
Yes,
right?
it has.
Thank you.
Councilor Benega.
Just to follow up on Vernon's question, Deborah, can you break down the percentage of increase both for fixed route and for paratransit? I know the total's 11, but is it equally spread?
Year-to-date ridership, the fixed route went up 10.93%, the paratransit went up 13.43%.
Thank you.
So paratransit went up just a little bit more than fixed route.
Councilor Stagers.
Yeah, in the same vein, Deb, can you tell us in 2006 how much fare was collected from the riders?
Let me look here real quick. Did you say for fixed route or paratransit or both?
For both.
Okay, the fare box revenue for 2006 for fixed route was 403,356.
403,000?
356. Paratransit, oh, I'm sorry. Is that-
Yeah, 403,356.
Correct.
Okay?
And then for paratransit, it was 279,767.
And then my question is that for 2008, we're projecting fares much lower than those numbers. Why is that the case?
I don't believe,
For fixed routes, we're projecting 393,500, and for paratransit, we're projecting 215,000.
I did go over what was projected in 2007. I did not use the actual numbers in '06 and use a percentage off of that. I used the '07 projected and did a percentage of that, if that makes sense.
I guess I'm still wondering why it's lower, because we're talking about all these increased riders. You would think that the fare box would be more than it is.
You're talking about the projected revenue in 2008, why that's lower than
Yes,
what we
the
actually got in
actual.
'06.
Yes.
And I guess I went off of the 2007 projected numbers, which must have been lower than 2006, and increased it by a certain percentage to get my revenue numbers here. So I didn't use the actual 2006 numbers.
So do you think, I mean, we're talking about all this increase in ridership. So, the number that you're projecting for 2008, 608,500, you think might be artificially low too? Or?
Just to tell you, like
Okay.
in 2006, the actual fare box revenue ended up coming in at 13%. The fare box projected in 2007 was 9.3%, and projected in 2008 is 9.2%. But you have to remember that the expenses of the whole system are going up, so your percentages are,
Yeah, I'm not really concerned about percentages. I'm just concerned about the actual dollars that are brought in.
and so I guess basically what I'm saying is there's a very good chance the revenues are going to be higher than what's projected.
Yeah, because if we are talking about constantly increasing ridership, we should definitely be having, more money coming in from the fare
That's right.
box.
That's right.
Deborah, I had a question a couple days ago, just as I walked in the door from our budget hearings, and it was a person who had served on the transit task force that, met for 9 months fairly recently, and you did such a nice job with that group, and as you well know, I served on that group with you. But anyway, this was a person's question, and he asked that I ask it tonight publicly, so I will. He wanted to know why all the recommendations from the task force were not included in the budget. And it's what I told him is that every department that I've ever heard of always has quite a lengthy wish list, but unfortunately we just don't have enough money to accomplish all the suggestions from every task force and every committee. And I don't know, is there anything else I should tell him or that you might want to tell him via Channel 16 tonight?
Well, that's exactly what we did. We took every one of those recommendations in the beginning and put them all into the budget. And the increase was like a 27% increase in our overall expenditures. And it just wasn't going to happen. There just isn't the money there to pay for a lot of those services. New routes, third-party paratransit eligibility reviews, we just didn't have the money for it.
Thank you. I promised him that I would ask you. Okay, seeing no other questions, was there another question over here? Okay, thank you very much, Deborah, and thank you for the work you do for all of us.
Thanks, T.
And with that, now we will move to Main Street, Sioux Falls, and the Executive Director, Dan Stadema, will come before us for an annual presentation. Thanks, Dan.
Good evening. I'm Dan Stadema with Main Street Sioux Falls at 122 South Phillips Avenue. I do have a few prepared remarks that I'd like to go over if you don't mind, and then questions would be great. A couple of interesting numbers I think are interesting to review, and the fact that the value of downtown in 1995 was $75 million. In 2005, it was $149 million, nearly double. That from 2000 to 2006, over $100 million in building permits were issued for downtown. And we now know that there are over 10,000 people that work downtown, which makes downtown Sioux Falls larger than 97% of the other cities in the state of South Dakota on a typical weekday. The preliminary budget for 2008 is $746,000, and you can see that the city's portion of that is $164,000. That's a slight increase from the last couple of years, and that increase is due to the fact that historically the planning department has funded an intern for us. Through a couple of conversations with Mr. Cooper, we decided it would just be easier if we did that internally. That's why you see a little bit of a change from the past couple of years. If I can draw your attention to these pie charts, there's a couple of interesting facts I think on here. First, it compares 2003 to 2008. The city portion in 2003 was $147,300, and 2008 is $164,000. That's an increase of less than 2% for those 6 years, which I would guess is less than the rate of inflation. It's also interesting to note that in 2003 that represented nearly 40% of our income, and for 2008 it represents about 22% of our income. I think you're all pretty familiar with what we do, the types of projects we're involved in. Of course, everybody knows us for our events. It's one of the most public and visible things we do, but as many of you know, we do much more than that. Going back to the pie chart, you can see that the operating budget as a whole has increased fairly dramatically in the last 6 years. And I thought I'd go over some of the new programs, initiatives, and events that are the cause for some of those for the increase in the operation budget. On the event side of the house, We have the street musician programs every Friday and Saturday night, very successful programs. We do the carriage rides every Friday night. We're also doing popcorn, which there's a little picture of in there through another sponsorship. We sell popcorn. We try to do it every Friday and Saturday night for a quarter down on Phillips Avenue. Automania, which there's a picture of. I think it's the last one. That's the intersection of Phillips and 11th Street, pointed 3 different directions, all within about 60 seconds. These are the types of pictures you like to see when you're in my line of work. But that has grown in 3 years to be our largest event. We do movies every Saturday night now with the help of the Parks Department. There's a picture of that in there. That's been going since June, and since about week 2, we've had crowds of 300 to 400 every Saturday night. And it's not infrequent that we get comments from a lot of visitors to the city saying, wow, I wish our city would do something like this, or where did you get this, or how do you make this happen in your community? We did loft tours this year. That was successful. Almost had 400 people come down. We had actually several apartments, lofts that got rented through the process. Another new event is the Sanford 3-on-3 basketball tournament, which is Saturday, by the way. And we had to cut off registrations at 80 because we were just getting too many teams. Another new event this year is the Firefighters Combat Challenge, which is the end of this month. Some new initiatives off of the event side, other things that we're participating in. We have a new street sweeper, which you can see a picture of in there as well. We've had that for a majority of the summer. That's out on the sidewalks about 30 hours a week. Again, it's a new initiative that we're receiving lots of phone calls, lots of thanks from property owners, visitors. It's helping with a lot of cigarette butts, leaves, things out on the street. A very worthwhile initiative on our part. We have a new parking campaign. You can see some of the renderings. I think it's the page right after the pie chart. Some of those are up now. Some of those will be up in the very near future. Just to talk about parking, as you know, everybody wants to talk about parking as it is associated with downtown. And the fact that I think a large majority of the community, when they're looking for parking and they're coming downtown, they go straight to Phillips Avenue. And of the public parking places downtown, that's actually less than 5% of the parking options available downtown. So trying to educate the community on other parking options downtown, and that there's lots of parking downtown. It's just a little bit different than other areas of the city. The statistical study, which I mentioned earlier, will receive the final report yet this month. The downtown gift cards, which there's a picture in there too, we are going to launch that yet this year. It's another way we're trying to help promote the strength of the retail community downtown. The Idea Exchange, which is just a couple weeks old, which was great in bringing in some national speakers to talk to us about trends, things going on across the nation. And then a new microloan program through DDIF, which DDIF itself, which is our loan program, has done 60 loans for $1.65 million, which resulted in $10 million investment into downtown. We have a new microloan program of DDIF, which is for loans less than $5,000, which is helping a lot of the smaller retailers if they happen to get in a crunch. It's admittedly difficult, and I try to think of these things all year long on ways to quantify a return on your investment into Main Street Sioux Falls. There are a couple of things I would ask that you consider. When you go back to how much the base or the value of downtown has increased in the last 10 years and how that relates to increased property taxes, the increasing investment you're seeing downtown, I thought about reading you a list of all the properties that are being invested into downtown just right now. And the list is long, and I think if you drive down just about any street downtown, you'll see those types of investments taking place. That the stronger retail health correlates into higher sales tax receipts, and that some of the larger events we have also increase the sales tax that takes place just because of those particular events. And then, of course, there are the unquantifiable reasons to have a healthy downtown. I'm sure you are all familiar with those. And just to finish, a couple more statistics in that I mentioned earlier with 10,000 people working downtown, that made downtown larger than 97% of the cities in the state. There are at least 1,200 people that live downtown Sioux Falls. That makes downtown Sioux Falls larger than 84% of the communities in the state of South Dakota at all times. Tom Bosch told me recently, as the general manager of the Holiday Inn, that last November of 2006 was their best November by 42% ever. That's the type of statistical information that calls for an improving downtown. with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Councilor Kavanaugh.
Dan, the category of other in your total budget is the largest percentage. Could you give me a breakdown of what type of other funds you receive?
Other tends to be primarily the events and programs, many of which I mentioned. They tend to be things like the Idea Exchange, all the larger events like Parade of Lights, Automania, Hot Summer Nights. Some of those are fairly significant, in the range of $40,000 to $50,000 in and out for some of those events. And then some of the other ones, which would be more in the range of $10,000, would be the street musicians.
Councilor Stagers.
Yeah, Dan, I'm glad the other really is very significant. I don't know, do you have any long-range plans of increasing the other a lot more and decreasing the city's contribution?
I can't speak to any long-range visions to that. I can say that it's important to me that obviously downtown is changing fairly rapidly right now, and that we as an organization need to continue to evolve and change to meet the future needs of downtown Sioux Falls, and I can't bear a guess at what that's going to be 5 years from now.
Any other questions for Dan?
Maybe not a question, but a comment might be in order. Downtown today is different for the average citizen of Sioux Falls than it was 10 years ago.
Yes, sir.
You can go downtown on any given night of the week, and it's a different atmosphere downtown than it has been, and I thank you for your work in making that happen.
Thank you for all your support for all these many years.
Councilor Danica?
Yeah, Dan, could you just tell me a little bit about the membership revenue increase since 2003? Is that the number of people have increased their contributions, or have the membership grown by additional people?
It's both.
Okay.
The membership category is actually two different things. It's both the bid district and those that choose to do other types of membership.
Okay.
We are finding, especially in the last couple of years, that more and more members are coming from businesses, individuals even, not located downtown, because they believe in the success of downtown Sioux Falls and how it relates to the entire community. So yes, we've seen a fairly dramatic increase in the membership, and I like to think that that is indicative to the success we're having downtown.
You know, I'm sure you're right, and as Bob said, we do appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Councilor Stagers.
Since you mentioned membership, is there any way in the future we can make it voluntary instead of mandatory?
Well, I think what we have right now is a fairly good balance. We have both voluntary and we have the bid district, which we've come to you historically with very high approval ratings from the property owners themselves. It's not unusual for us to see a lot of those property owners are also buying memberships because they feel like their bid is too low, or that they want to further invest into the organization to invest downtown.
I mean, I think that's great if they want to, buy additional memberships or whatever. But I'm just thinking about some of those businesses who might really not want to be forced into membership.
And I can't tell you that there's probably not some that are out there that don't, but I think that the level of service that they are receiving, especially in the last 5 years, is ever increasing for what they're getting for their bid dollar.
Thank you again, Dan, very much for your work. And our next presentation tonight will be given by Russ DeCurtins, who works for SMG, and I think Deb Eshe looks like she's coming forward to help with the presentation. And again, they will speak with us about the arena and the historic Orpheum Theater operations. Welcome, Russ.
Good evening, Dee and council members. I am Russ DeCurtins, Executive Director for the Sioux Falls Arena and Orpheum Theater Center, managed by SMG. And as Dee said, I'm joined tonight by my Assistant Director, Deb Eshe. The Sioux Falls Arena is a busy place. It's most often associated with our three sports teams, the Skyforce, the Stampede, and the Storm. All three organizations have tremendous winning records and nearly 20 years of community support going back to 1989. They account for 62 to 65 of our event days each year, depending on the playoffs. Local sporting events are not the only events that happen at the arena. The arena hosts world-class entertainers like Cher, James Taylor, the Blue Man Group, and a very special concert that we will be announcing soon. Can't tell you. Also, corporate functions, conventions and trade shows, graduations, shrine circus, state high school events, and a long list of other events. Coming in 2009 and 2010 for the first time, an NCAA Division I college men's and women's basketball tournament. The Lutheran Women's Missionary League is an example of one of the conventions hosted in part at the arena. This is an event that we started working with the CVB and the Sheraton Hotel back in January of 2007. And in June of this year, 5,000 of the nicest ladies and 3 or 4 grumpy men crammed the arena for several days. Another example of the unique events held at the arena include the First Premier and Citibank corporate functions. First Premier's 4,000 employees and guests hosted Jeff Foxworthy last month, and their stage setup is pictured in the presentation. Citibank has held their Christmas party at the arena for the last 4 years and is booked again for December of 2007. As part of our responsibilities at the arena, the SMG is in charge of the exterior maintenance on the entire 56-acre complex that includes thousands of feet of sidewalk, curb and gutter, 3,400 parking spaces and associated roadways, several acres of landscaping, trees, and flowers. Snow removal, asphalt and concrete repair, and general cleanup are among those responsibilities. Included in this 2008 budget request is over $165,000 to take care of these items. Of course, snow removal, being in South Dakota, is one of the biggest single items. The Orpheum Theater Center is also becoming a busy place. With the success of the Sioux Empire Community Theater, Jazz and Blues Society, Municipal Band, and other tenants, we continue to see a significant increase in usage from only 8 event days in 2007 to an estimated 174 event days in 2000. I'm sorry, I misspoke. 8 event days in 2002 and an estimated 174 event days in 2007. Corporate meetings and receptions are becoming an exciting part of the center, and with the great cooperation from the Holiday Inn City Center next door and caterers like Chef Dominique, we feel we have just begun to tap this business. One note on the attendance and the event figures for projections for 2007. We learned just this week that the Children's Theater Company of Sioux Falls is going to cease operations, and we had planned and hoped that they would be part of our complex, and they will not be. But we are already taking steps to secure another organization to fill those shoes. The city acquired the Orpheum Theater Center in early 2002. With the council's strong support, the once partially complete unused building has been transformed into an attractive, well-received community asset. The opening of the Annie Zabel Studio Theater classroom offices, new lobby and restrooms, Channel 16 studio was celebrated on June 22nd with a ribbon-cutting celebration and a public open house. Since then, the courtyard on the back side of the lobby has been completed thanks to a generous private donation. Now that the unused portion of the complex is complete, up and running, we must turn our focus back to improving the original 1913 theater, which that space has been used but is sorely in need of things like carpet and paint. We are currently undergoing a renovation of the doors in the storefront. We still have work to do on mural restorations. Some of these items that I've mentioned are included in the 2008 budget request. There is always much discussion about the economic benefit of events and meetings that come into town. Multi-million-dollar figures are often used whenever a major convention or special event takes place. However, our facility's economic benefit is more difficult to track, as many of our guests do not register, such as they do in conventions and conferences, and a significant number of our patrons don't use hotels or rent cars. However, this number on the screen before you represents some of the impact that we can track and should give you a better idea of the economic benefit that these facilities provide. Please note, the $8 million figure for 2006 is just the amount that we can track through ticket sales for our sports teams and concerts and events, food and beverage, space and equipment rental, and merchandise that we sell on behalf of our touring shows. It does not include merchandise sold at Sportsman Show, Autumn Festival, conventions, and associated trade show, nor does it include corporate sponsorships, booth space sold by conventions, and our sports teams. This is a conservative number of what is spent directly in our facility. And if you factor in the associated spending, as I mentioned, this number could easily be doubled. And it contains no consideration for spending by guests and visitors from other cities, because we have no way of tracking those. No matter what the number is used, the overwhelming reason the arena and the Orpheum Theater exist is to provide entertainment choices and enhance the quality of life for Sioux Falls citizens. I want to thank you, and in conclusion, you'll see that the 2008 budget, I'm assuming that you're seeing the same figures that we have on your other spreadsheets. I didn't include it in the slide, is a modest 3.6% increase over 2007. Contains several one-time expenses for furthering the completion and restoration of the Orpheum Theater. Again, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Yes, thank you. Any questions for Russ? Councilor Stagers?
Yes, Russ, it has down in the budget here, the total for the independent contractor, yourself and your company, at $647,515. I was looking for the Orpheum Theater numbers. That doesn't include the Orpheum Theater, does it?
The number that you're seeing for professional services independent contractors includes both the Orpheum and also includes the contracted labor for snow removal for the complex, the salaries for the janitorial for snow removal, the fees for management. The Orpheum Theater does not have a management fee. We don't get paid a dime to manage the Orpheum Theater, so you do not see a management fee for the Orpheum Theater.
Okay.
SMG has agreed to manage that as part of our arena contract, and we do not receive additional funds for that.
Do you get any revenue from the Orpheum Theater, though?
The revenues for rent and things that we take in and that we control are actually on a separate operating budget. It's very confusing. I think we've talked about this before. What you see is the operating subsidy, and at the bottom of that category, there's $80,493, and the Division 2, that's the operating subsidy for the Orpheum Theater.
Well, where's that again? I didn't. Okay.
Fund Class 460, 22.01. At the bottom of that is 22.03, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with numbers tonight. Figures, it's a budget hearing. $80,493. You see that? And Division 2 is the Orpheum, Division 1 is the arena.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Would there be any other questions? Russ, I just have a comment I'd like you to send back to Terry Torkelson, who does such a nice job managing the historic Orpheum Theater. And a few weeks ago I was leaving church, and a gal in town who's really a talented lady with lots of theater experience kind of grabbed me, and I thought maybe she had a comment on the sermon, but she didn't. She just wanted me to know as a city councilor that there was no one in the world that could do a better job than Terry Torkelson managing the Orpheum Theater, and that we didn't know how lucky we were. So I want you to share that message to him, if you would.
I will do so.
Okay.
Terry, unfortunately, couldn't be with us tonight. His grandfather passed away this week. So
yeah, thank you.
He will be very, very pleased to hear that comment.
Thank you, and we always wish you the best.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to move now to the animals. We're going to move to the Zoological Society, and our the Executive Director, Elizabeth Wheely, will give that presentation. And welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Welcome.
It's great to talk about the animals, and I think when we talk about the zoo, hopefully you've all been to the zoo recently, you've seen the animals, and you've seen the work we've done on exhibits and facilities. But it's probably good for all of us to think more about the scope of our mission and how we serve that mission. When you see those animals, you probably don't think about the fact that there are now 600 live animals in our collection, and that's an increase of about 100 animals over last year. In fact, we've increased our number of species by about 50 new species in the last year and a half, and that gives people in Sioux Falls more and more reasons to come to the zoo, but more of those animals to think about. We also provide recreation for about 150,000 guests a year, and outreach education through Zoomobiles, Zoo Tots, on-site classes, and camps for 20,000 kids in the four-state area. Another great number for us to think about is that last year we were accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which means the magic number is 10. We are in the top 10% of animal institutions in the country, and I think we all can be very proud of that. Certainly we could not have done that without your help and your assistance, and I'm pleased to say that the last year has brought us not only new animals, but also a number of new exhibits and renovations that have really given a facelift to the zoo. Lots of new fencing, renovations of old exhibits that we've tried to rework with kind of a low investment, high impact approach. And that includes our new albino alligator exhibit, which if you haven't seen him, he's a loaned animal. He leaves in the middle of September, so get out and see him. It's been a real wow factor for our guests. Next week we'll be opening our new creepy crawlers, which is one of the very oldest buildings. I believe it was a restroom building back before the zoo was a zoo. It was in the park system. And so we've reworked that, given it a facelift, so you can see new animals that are exotic in kind of a fun atmosphere. Of course, we're also working on renovating our Asian cat exhibit, which is not a small renovation, but will give our snow leopards, tigers, and new palace cats a wonderful place, and of course, visitors a great experience to see them in a new, enhanced Asia. I'm pleased to say that the last year has also brought us a real focus on our operations, and that has come into focus with strong revenues, a significant increase in memberships over 2005, good attendance, and all of those things have allowed us to really focus on not only the earned income, but the developed income, fundraising. And some of you were with us for a recent Jungle Jubilee that raised $120,000, which is a huge increase over previous years. And that's just one piece of our work toward developing the private investment that will go into the zoo. I know you've got a lot of things to think about, a lot of people asking for your help and support. Let me cut to the chase. Our 2008 proposed budget is $3,811,000. We request an allocation of $1,334,048. You'll note, I hope, that that's a zero increase over our request for 2006, zero increase for our request over 2007. We're trying to hold that line, keep that at a zero increase, but do more and more with it and focus really in a very strategic manner on the earned income and the developed income that we know we can drive for the zoo to make an even better Great Plains Zoo.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Brown.
Elizabeth, can you talk to us about attendance, what the numbers are doing in the last year?
Attendance in zoos is kind of a complicated thing because as we look at admissions numbers, the dollar numbers, they may not correlate exactly across with attendance numbers. So we're going to talk about two different numbers. Our attendance has been on the increase. I think in 2005 it was about 137,000. We increased that to about 146,000 last year. We are up over last year, this year. But as you look at the numbers in our budget, last year that didn't equate to higher admissions numbers, but we drove memberships incredibly. So in other words, we got a lot more members and they were spending more time at the zoo, and that translates into more retail, more concessions, all of those other earned income pieces that rely on the visit. So the bottom line is attendance is very good, attendance is up, and admissions are constant. So that's all very good news.
And what are the memberships doing? In terms of increases?
Memberships did about a 48% increase last year over 2005, and we're on the build, and that's an area that we really see as an area of opportunity and an area of focus for us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I guess I'm a little concerned about, I'm glad we have the number of people attending up, memberships up, but the money, the revenue coming in, staying stable.
No, overall, our revenues are up dramatically, overall. What I was hoping to explain to Councilor Brown is that as you look at the dollars attached to admissions, the admissions line item, it doesn't appear to increase dramatically because those people are coming in time over time as members. So they've paid that membership fee. It's not a loss, it's a gain.
Yeah, I guess I just thought I heard you say that, but the revenue was just kind of stable. everything was
Our
up?
overall revenue is up dramatically. In 2006, it was up above our budget, which was an aggressive plan. We put our budget growth at, I believe, about 7% over 2005 and beat that in spades.
So as far as the revenue, overall revenue in dollars, how much is it up?
Let me just give you a correct figure so that it doesn't come back to haunt any of us. 2005, we were at $2,026,075. So thank you for someone's membership that added that roundabout $75. Gross revenue in 2006 was at $3,811,000. So we were up over our plan by more than $300,000. Our budget for 2006 was $2.679, and we were at $3 million and change. So we've worked very hard to drive revenue in the institution and to use it well. And we needed to do that to play catch-up. As we all recall, we had a lot of deferred maintenance that we needed to get after. We had some programming issues, a lot of empty seats in 2005 that needed to be filled with people who could serve our mission. And I think we've done that. We've gotten there. And now we need to move the zoo to the next place.
So you said in 2006, the revenue was $3,811, is that right?
That's right.
And then did you say that for next year, you're anticipating $3,811,000? I wrote that down.
I believe that is, let me just, I'm sorry.
Okay.
2008 proposes $3,004,814.
$3 million.
So I cheated you out of $4,000 there.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
4,018.
Yes. So $3,004,814. My mistake, I
So for
apologize.
2008, that's not much more than 2006 actual.
Actual? No.
Yeah. Is there any reason why you don't think that you can generate more revenue? So 2006,
We
the actual
look
was
at driving all of our revenue pieces and try to be conservative and appropriate about what we can do. I will tell you that our actual blew our doors open on budget for 2006 because we had some very good donations and we had some unexpected, what we like to call angel donations. So those cannot be expected year over year. You know, we sort of have a development strategy, and then there's that over and above where people come through to invest in the zoo, help the zoo. It's not expected. It's a gift. And that's the beautiful thing about this partnership, I think, is that the city's land, the city's property can be improved by private people who want to help the zoo and who believe in our mission of conservation and education and recreation. So I think that part of the partnership alone is really exciting for us as we look toward the future.
Councilor Benega has a question, I believe.
I have a question and a comment. A question is in reference to the number of school children who are attending the zoo. I'm assuming that as I drive by there regularly, it seems like there's always school buses there. Can you tell me if you've had any growth in the school bus attendance, if you will?
Well, that's a good question. I appreciate the question. We kind of look at all of those lumped together. I certainly could split those out and get back to you with a quick phone call or email, but I can tell you that we've had some growth from 2005 to 2006. We're right at about 20,000 kids now, and I think last year we were right about 17,000. So
Okay.
Good growth, but an area that, again, I think we have more capacity, more opportunity, but we need to build those pieces.
And the comment, last year, family members attended the zoo, and again, this, frankly, just a few weeks ago, and I was not able to attend that time, but they came back with extremely positive comments about the aesthetic changes and the cleanliness, and part of it I know is your staff, and part of it's Don Carney's Park and Rec staff, but you need to be complimented on the dramatic change in the way that that's the appearance of the community zoo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is something that we all work on really hard, and I can tell you that the parks crew have just done an amazing job of making our grounds beautiful, and we continue to be focused on that. And it's one of the most fun things that we hear from our guests, particularly from out of town. They appreciate that park-like appearance and how close you can get to animals, and so it's really fun to hear. It's great to hear from the hometown team, but it's also good to have people from different backgrounds with different perspectives, and that's one of the comments that we're really lucky to hear.
Thank you for your extra work.
Councilor Brown.
You've also done a good job in the last year in getting other events to have their parties and things at the zoo, and I think that's a great way to expose people, so congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. One of the line items that we are looking at growing is facility rentals and group sales, and we've really taken a much more focused approach on those, and I'm pleased to say that the city employees were one of the groups that we had that we were hosting at the zoo just last week, and it was really fun to have 800 city employees who are all our partners in what we do out there having fun at the zoo and getting to know our animals.
Councilor Jameson.
Just as a comment, Saturday, I got to go through the bait shop, which was an interesting use of an old building. I thought it was nice, kind of a quaint thing to see in a zoo, something that different. We enjoyed that part of it, so I just thought I'd pass that on.
Thank you. You know, we're really bound by our current facilities, and it's hard to think of what we could bring in as new animals because we're really maximizing our space, which is kind of the good news, bad news story. And so creating the Billy Joe Jim Bob's bait shop with the cave behind it and the big old albino alligator was a lot of fun, and it really kind of tested our creativity to bring in a new animal that was a high impact for the summer. So thanks.
You bet.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you all. We appreciate your support.
Good luck to you. And now we will hear from Steve Hoffman from the Washington Pavilion. And I think Jane will be with him halfway. Steve, as you come forward, I just want you to know that we all wish you really the very best as you begin the new chapter in your life in California in 1st of October. And we will miss you. I received all my tickets for the performances in the mail today, and I just thought it's just going to be different without you there, and we hope that you'll come back and see some of our productions.
I can't wait. Thank you very much. Well, we value the partnership that's been established between the City of Sioux Falls and the Washington Pavilion. The entertainment tax is a fund that was approved by the City of Sioux Falls voters at the same time as the vote was approved to build the pavilion and the convention center. The entertainment tax fund is used to help support the operating budget of the Washington Pavilion and to provide for ongoing building repair and maintenance of the city-owned facility. The Washington Pavilion is requesting $2.33 million from the entertainment tax to be used for the 2008 operating budget, CIP, OSEP, and other related expenses. This overall request reflects a 12% decrease of $320,000 less than what we received for 2007. For the pavilion's operating budget, we've requested $1.28 million, an increase of 3.2% over 2007 due to a cost of living adjustment. In 2006, the city designated $1.2 million in entertainment tax funds to the approximately $5 million pavilion operating budget. That $1 million investment yielded an economic impact of, conservatively, over $12 million generated through activities through the Washington Pavilion, and that's through the Americans for the Arts National Economic Impact Calculator. Plus, the Washington Pavilion itself remitted in sales and use taxes about $250,000 to the state and back to the city in 2006. Our partnership is very mutual. The city's contribution is offset by hundreds of individuals and businesses who donate to and invest in the Washington Pavilion. The city serves as a benchmark for the community to nearly match the funds. Most of these individuals and business contributions are solicited by volunteers who, because of the city's trust and support in the pavilion, are willing to raise nearly 20% of the pavilion's operating budget themselves. The flip side of the partnership is what the pavilion gives back to the community. In addition to the economic impact, the pavilion greatly contributes to our community's quality of life. In 2006, the Husby Performance Series nearly doubled in subscribers. For the 2007-2008 season that we just launched, the subscription base has again increased from 2006. Jesus Christ Superstar, 8 months before the actual performance, is getting close to selling out already. While the Cinedome attendance has decreased slightly, the Science Center attendance has increased over projections for the past 2 years. We attribute some of this increase to those new galleries that we have been able to add for the last several years, and that later this year we'll be launching a new gallery with a sports theme. It should be a popular attraction that begs for repeat visits. The Science Center has also been developing several fundraisers, including Shooting for Science, the Pavilion Wellness Festival and 5K Walk Run, and the new Discovery Ladies Golf Classic. The Visual Arts Center has seen a tremendous increase in attendance this summer, directly relating to the Taiwan exhibit. It comes down October 19th, so see it before it heads to Vancouver and then ultimately back to Taiwan. Arts Night, an annual fundraiser for the Visual Arts Center, had its most successful year ever, raising over $100,000. The Visual Arts Center is also working on raising funds to match a family gift. The funds are for a new endowment, the Pavilion Art Acquisition Fund, that will be available several years from now to purchase artwork and build the permanent collection. With the addition of Mary Guerra, our very first Director of Community Engagement and Learning, we will have an even stronger impact in the region and schools and provide more learning opportunities for people of all ages. Finally, in the next several months, the Pavilion will be launching a new marketing campaign that emphasizes the ownership people have on all the various activities offered at this cultural institution. In April of this year, the Washington Pavilion Board of Trustees approved a new institutional plan that will shape the direction of the organization and guide its budget over the next several years. The 3 adopted institutional strategic outcomes are programming excellence, audience development, and education. For 2007 and 2008, several resources have been identified to help fulfill these outcomes. Install and implement Audience View patron services management system that will better help serve our constituents and provide stronger customer service. Also identified with this new system is creating a patron services coordinator position to manage the powerful system, manage the data, and provide necessary reports to staff. We're a very complex organization, and each area has a very different set of needs for reporting and analysis. Another component is to hire the first Director of Community Engagement and Learning, which we just did, to take all educational and learning programs and house them in one single learning center with one single vision. This will better meet public needs, better facilitate programming excellence, and increase earned and unearned revenue support. Finally, professional staff development has been identified as a priority. Efforts are being made to better identify professional learning opportunities in-house, locally through group programs, and nationally for programs that will better equip staff to succeed in their jobs and thus increase attendance and/or revenues. I thank you for your continued support. With my upcoming departure, the Pavilion will be going through some changes, as I'm sure you're aware, and we all know that change can be difficult. But with the continued support of the city and its officials, I'm convinced that the next stage of the Washington Pavilion, the Washington Pavilion's life, will be even more inspirational and more prosperous. So I thank you very much for all of your support for the past 10 years while I've been here.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions? Okay, you get off really easily tonight. You're very fortunate. So again, we wish you the very best.
Thanks, Kermit.
Well, maybe I should
Yeah,
say something. Congratulations on reducing the amount of money the city's going to be paying.
We have a couple more presentations this evening that we are looking forward to hearing, and our next presentation will be about our city-owned convention center, and Scott Kavanaugh from Global Spectrum will provide that presentation. So welcome.
Thank you, Dee. Councilman, ladies. It's kind of interesting when we first came here a couple months ago when everybody said how much they were happy to be in Sioux Falls. When it's time to present the budget the first time, I'd like you to see that the corporate guys have all flown the coop, all right? So I really am happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity we've had to sit down with most of the council members and go over and learn about you, learn about your community and the city here. And it really is exciting for me and my wife and kids to be part of the community in the city. So we are excited to be here. So I got a couple of slides to briefly go over the budget, the overview for what we are planning for 2008. As you can see, I've kind of broken these down. Revenues, we plan on bringing in $633,000 rent. You can see the difference in services that we plan on, the revenues we plan on taking in, what those services will cost us. That's AV rentals, guest services, ticket fees, those types of things. Those are revenue streams that have not been here in the past for the city. And you can see the difference there of a net profit of $275,000 there. Salaries, other expenses, the ones starting with utilities we refer to as indirects. Tom doesn't like that word, but we're trying to teach him in the ways of convention centers. And those are all broken out as the major portions of our expenses that we'll be experiencing in 08. Management fee, insurance, maintenance, administration costs, etc. And then last but not least, the food and beverage commissions that will be the costs. That's the money that's coming directly to the city after the revenues less the expenses, and that's your money there for a total subsidy of $647,515 for the year of 2008. If you go to the next slide, we broke it down just a little bit to give you, since it's kind of hard as you sit and you listen, a lot of the questions we've heard tonight are, how does this compare to last year? Well, that's a difficult thing for us. So what we thought, rather than go back on something not knowing what the past is, we're going to come in and show you where we envision going. And we put a 5-year projection on there so you can look, that bottom line number, the subsidy, it goes down substantially in the next 5 years. And that's where we plan. Gross revenues, total expenses, and then once again, the Food and Beverage Commission should increase each and every year as well. Any questions? That's basically what we have planned at the convention center. I'm sure there are questions. I don't think I'm going to, Steve, you want to come up? Because you didn't get any questions. I'll share some of mine with you.
Councilor Sagers.
Yes, sure.
I'm still trying to figure out the management fees. I thought it was $144,000, but that first slide, I think you had $216,000?
Yes, you go back one. The management fees are $216,000. What that is that's if we get all of our incentives, if we make all of our things. If we make our incentives, your revenues will be greatly above that as well. It's a very complicated, it's an IRS statute, and it's all spelled out in the management contract. Because
I don't know how many different figures I've seen on this, and this is the highest figure I've seen. So what's the very minimum we would pay you? I mean, this is the max we could pay, is that right? What's the
$108,000.
Okay, $108,000, okay. And this is the max, $216.
But I promise you, if it's only $108,000, that management fee and the incentive will be the least of your problems.
Okay.
That's why we do it worst case scenario, because that's where we're going. We don't plan on it any other way.
Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Are these numbers going to be in the contract?
Yes. The budget won't be in the contract. The management fee numbers will be, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, Vernon. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Were you done, Councilor Stagers? Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. Councilor Costello?
Gene, do you recall what the subsidy for this year is budgeted to be?
Didn't Gene tell us the other night it was 600,000? Or Gary told us that, I thought.
Gene, would you want to come up to the microphone just and answer that just for the listening audience too, please?
The budgeted subsidy for 07 is $498,124.
And this subsidy of $647,000 includes the revenue fee back for food and beverage.
Correct.
Percentage includes, so.
Yes.
We're still thinking that we're going to lose $150,000 more than
Yeah,
what we did this
what
year.
you see, the biggest number up there that you haven't seen before is salaries. That's a $950,000 number that was not accountable in the last, there was no salaries allocated to the convention center. So what we've done is we've added those in. The history that you'll see is that the subsidies continue to rise, has continued to rise. We've kind of leveled it off, and as we're showing, that's why the other slide, the second slide was so important. You can see where we're going and how we're going down with the subsidy as opposed to continually rising.
Councilor Brown, or were you finished?
Well, I was just going to ask one last question.
Sorry.
Has the communication line between John Q. Hammond's gotten any better?
It has. We set up a weekly meeting. Hopefully, we won't have to do it once a week, but Russ the Curtains has joined us, and we're just it's kind of we like to call it a site meeting. Everybody on site there. Mike Cooper's showing up. Vernon got us going on this, and what we're doing is we're just going over issues. What's going on? The past is behind us. Let's move forward, and those issues they're going away.
Okay, that's encouraging.
It is.
Councilor Brown.
I need some help with the numbers. If 647,000 is the subsidy, I believe Gary told us Monday night that this year's would be 600,000. We add in the CVB's 150,000. I'm at close to $800,000 total subsidy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The way I do math.
That's where I struggle because that's clearly much more than what we're paying in a subsidy this year.
I think one of the things you'll see in exchange for the subsidy, obviously you're the ones that have to equate that out into value, but you're giving your CVB the authority to book the city is what you're given the authority to do. And you're going to have a lot more chances to create that economic impact.
And I understand that is best practice to have the CVB do that. And if you can live up to those numbers of bringing that subsidy down, I feel far more comfortable with it.
We feel very confident in these numbers. We do not have any convention centers in the Midwest that lose $500,000 a year after we've been in. Two that I've worked at since we've been in there our second year, we were profitable. Now, I can't promise a profit till I get in and get a chance to get my hands on a little bit, but to be honest with you, I've got other general managers of convention centers that are making money. I'm going that way. I don't like to be showing up at all. So we feel very confident in these numbers.
Scott, a question that I forgot to ask you the other day when I was visiting with you is just out of curiosity, how long have you worked for Global Spectrum?
5 years.
Okay.
I started with the Overland Park Convention Center when it was a construction site. Our first year, they anticipated a budget loss of $500,000, and they make a $500,000 profit at this point. Second year in, they've started a profit.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's all we need tonight, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And our last presentation for this evening is the CVB, better known as the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Terry Ellis Schmidt, who has lots of expertise in this area, has worked in this area, I think 25 years, will give that presentation. So welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
Sure. If I could, I'd like to begin with, not quite yet. Okay. I'd like to begin with just a little explanation of the $150,000 for the convention center, and then move into the general CVB budget, if that's acceptable.
Sure.
Okay. Jean is passing out the budget proposal from the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the $150,000 request. And if I could, I'd like to just back up for a second and review with you just a little bit that last spring, originally when I was asked if we would be interested in doing the sales for the long-term book for the convention center, I said certainly we would be very interested in doing it, but obviously with the recognition that I would need some additional help to accommodate the needs of selling the convention center. And you all know me, I've been around for a while, and I think you all know that I kind of like to do everything at the maximum level and the highest opportunity possible. Therefore, I was then asked to put into writing what we would be willing to do in taking over the long-term sales of the convention center. With that commitment, I did submit, as you all know, a $600,000 request. Now, after that request went in and the process went through and the committee chose Global Spectrum, then it was a chance for us to step back, talk with Global Spectrum, get a feel for what they were going to do, really review what we needed to do with the convention center, what Global's going to do with the convention center, and factor all that into where are we going and what are we doing. Again, as you all know, I really want to get out there and sell the convention center to the max, get it on the map. I also, at the same time, know that the $600,000 has been very much questioned, and you have been very honest and forthright with me about that, and I appreciate that. After all of this study that we've done, and after just really looking at things and knowing what the financial condition is, we are submitting this $150,000 request to you. Now, I want to make sure that you understand that we have been working with Global for several weeks since they've been here. We've talked back and forth. What can you do? What can we do? How can we make this work? And Global has told us that they will take on the printing of an actual sales piece of the convention center. So that's good. That we will work together on getting some presentation materials for the convention center. So that's good, because none of those items are available for us to inherit. So we have to start over as if it is a brand new building. So what I did with this proposal to you tonight is to back up and say, all right, I think that what we need to do is to get 2 people on dedicated to the Sioux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau. And as you can see on the first page, I've spelled out what it will take to hire 2 people. If you turn to the second page, I then go into the program and services, the sales development side, because if we're not selling the convention center, then we might as well not be here. The first thing that I would recommend that we do is do sales blitzes and sales calls, go out to association meeting planners one-on-one in both the D.C. area and the Chicago area, primarily because that's where most of the larger association planners office. We need to go to them, sit down, introduce the convention center to them, let them know what is available, obviously selling the rest of the community, but making sure they realize that we have a state-of-the-art convention center that they can do business in and do it well. With that, you can see that I've requested the $8,000 for those 2 sales blitzes, spelling out in that paragraph that our goal would be to meet with 5 planners each day for 3 days and meet ultimately then with 15 new business prospects in each city on each sales blitz. Then I targeted the top, what we feel to be the top trade shows in America today for meeting planners. Number 1 being the ASAE, American Society of Association Execs, where approximately 5,000 meeting planners gather every year. They're looking for places to go to. It's time that the Sioux Falls Convention Center be put before them and be offered to them as a destination. IAEE is, it goes more, instead of the meeting planners, to the exhibitions and trade shows. Never been there. This trade show we need to go to and let them know, bring in more of like the Sioux Falls or the Sioux Empire Product Show, the like the, oh, I can't say their name, it was a food show that we recently had that outgrew and moved on. We need to go back to that marketplace and say, come and meet in Sioux Falls at the convention center, let them know what we can provide to them. Those two shows, as you can see, is 10.5. That includes everything. And then, of course, we've got to advertise. And I know that we're going to do some advertising jointly with Global, but the major market pieces that we need to get out and announce, reintroduce the Sioux Falls Convention Center to immediately are the ones that I have listed. And if you'll note that especially the top 5, the only way that we're going to be able to do this is if half of that expense for those ads comes out of the current CVB budget. So we would pay for half of it out of the current CVB budget and half of it out of this request that we are making to you this evening. And then, of course, the Chicago Association News and DC Association News, we would just go straightforward, perhaps with a smaller ad and focus on them. That brings us very quickly to that $150,000. This is a beginning. It's an introduction. It is meant to work with the current CVB budget as much as we possibly can without deflating what we are already responsible for. So before I get into the general CVB budget, with that, I'd like to entertain any questions you might have.
Yeah, Councilor Costello.
Terry, and Russ, to your, if you can add any input on this, I'd appreciate it as well. But to your knowledge, John Q. Hammonds, you mentioned that we haven't been at the IAEE, and did you say the IS8? Or
ASAE.
Neither one of those.
As a Sioux Falls Convention Center, no.
And
not that I know of.
that you're aware of. And
no.
The various trade magazines and things of that nature, are we aware that we've been in the past?
We have been as a city in some of them in a very small fashion, just trying to keep our name out. But as far as placing the convention center out into the market, no.
Are you aware of what John Q. Hammonds actually did to promote the convention center? Can you share with us any of that?
I do know that they did travel to Pierre sometimes to talk to some of the state associations. They did go on a couple bid trips with me. Russ, do you think?
I think the point I'm trying to make is that although our subsidy may appear in a total to be more than what it was in the past, we very well likely could get more out of it. And I have every confidence that between Global and Terry, that these numbers will be dramatically different next year. And I think, that it's kind of a painful experience for all of us to go through this, but there's probably a light at the end of the tunnel we can find.
Councilor Brown.
Do you know how many people sold the convention center under the previous contract, and how many salespeople we'll have going forward? You'll have 2.
I would have 2, Scott.
You have 4.
Scott will have 4.
Okay.
Short-term book, long-term book. How many previously?
And I know
I've been told between 4 and 7.
Okay.
Do you know that?
Okay, thank you.
I don't know.
Councilor Benega.
Terry, my only other question is in reference to, besides the conventions and obviously the publications, do you expect that your staff will be traveling any more to specific clients for those kinds of benefits?
Absolutely. I expect this staff to be on the road, they better be, quite a bit. And you probably have noticed there is no travel money in this.
That was my next question.
I'm not quite sure how we're going to pull that off, but we're going to have to take some money out of our current budget to do that. And if it gets to be a real issue of a lot of bids are jumping, it's really happening faster than we think it might, we might be back saying help. The more contacts you make and the more announcements and the more pursuing you do, the phone rings and it's, hey, we're interested. Or we're following up with somebody we met at a show and they said, all right, we're going to take a look at you. Be in Chicago on the 10th at 2 o'clock. You'll have 30 minutes. Well, we're there. So it is of concern. This is very bare bones. This is very first step. And, you know, keeping in mind, too, I have to be very forthright with you about this. A bare bones budget isn't going to deliver the world right out of the chute. But we want to get started. We're excited. We've got a great product to sell. And if 600,000 isn't realistic today, then let's get started and let's get growing and make the revenues happen and grow this budget so we can bring in more.
Councilor Jameson.
One of the part of your budget that you're going to be coming to is going to be addressed by the room tax, or that funds you directly. You directly receive that. With the efforts, what kind of increase do you expect to see in that tax?
Well, it's been projected, I think, Gene, you projected about 14,000.
Okay.
Councilor Benega?
Terry, you've talked obviously about next year. What happens for the last 3 months of this year?
Well, we are working on that. I think there's going to be something, Gene, I don't know if you want to address that.
I think Gary has told you the number will be about 75,000 for the end of the year. Monday we will have, well, actually there'll be a first reading and then a second reading the first Tuesday, I guess it is, in September. At the second reading, we will have a detailed explanation of what's going to happen to that 75,000, how that's going to be spent, just exactly like Terry has done for the 150. I think, you know, it's really unfortunate. Tom and his staff, another lady in particular, have been working very, very hard to work these numbers. And frankly, we don't know what went on in 06 and 07 and prior to that. We literally do not know. With the numbers that we have put together, we don't know if we're comparing oranges to apples or what. It's just because of the way things were handled. Different things were paid for by the city under the old contract and are going to be paid for under the new one. It's not a good situation. We're going to keep trying to work that and see if we can understand it, but the comparison of the two just has been frankly driving us nuts, and there's two of the best people that I've got working on it, and if they can't sort it out, I don't know that anybody can, but we're going to try.
Councilor Costello was first,
Gene,
and then I'll go to Kevin.
The 150,000 that's proposed here is not in the mayor's budget.
That's true.
And so it's going to require an amendment
Yes.
to take it out of the entertainment tax.
Yes.
Can you, or do we have it, or can you provide an accounting, a real simple accounting of the entertainment tax, how that money is spent?
We have that schedule put together. The operative word is simple. It is not simple right now. We will get it there in the next week or so and take you through a complete explanation of the entertainment tax. Frankly, the entertainment tax is doing very well. We've got a good fund balance in it, so we do have some money available to us in the entertainment tax.
Shouldn't, I guess I'm just thinking the 150,000 should have been included in the mayor's budget.
It was not included primarily because of timing. In order to get the budget done and put together, we had really no choice but to go with what we knew at 4 or 5 weeks ago.
So are you going to propose an amendment to get it in there, and are you going to have the corresponding offset to keep it balanced, or how are we going to do that?
Well, the 150 will actually be a use of fund, a use of unobligated fund balances. Or the other alternative is to adjust the amount of debt service that is being carried by the sales tax for that year.
And then ultimately that comes out of second penny, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And we're doing very well. In fact, the debt service that the sales tax that the second penny is providing is declining, and we've run this schedule out for 5-6 years beyond now, and that's coming down very nicely. We should be able to get out of the sales tax should be able to get out of the entertainment tax business in a few years. This will
using the 150 really has not much of an impact on it at all.
I think and the point is, I think in keeping with the spirit of the balanced budget, there should have been in there. We should have accounted for something.
Well, the balanced budget amendment was for the general fund, not for anything else, and this is not part of the general fund.
Councilor Kavanaugh.
Gene, I was under the impression that the entertainment tax, the current proceeds are not covering all of the, what I would consider those expenses that they should be covering, namely operating subsidy at the pavilion, convention center, and debt service. Are you saying that they're now covering all that?
No, not the debt service. They are covering everything but the debt service, and that's the swing number between the two. And that debt service number that's being paid by the entertainment tax is going down.
How much of the entertainment tax is going to debt service now?
The debt service that is being paid by the second penny is about...
The entertainment tax.
I don't know. We never... you know what? 2.3 million is coming from the entertainment tax, and about $1.5 million right now is coming from the second penny.
Okay, so you're proposing to take $150,000 out of the entertainment tax debt service?
No, because we have enough fund balance. We're actually up over $2 million in unobligated fund balance in the entertainment fund. That should be down around $1 million, where we'd like to keep it $900,000 to $1 million. So we will not be impacting the sales tax directly. We'll be running down that fund balance.
If we have $2 million unobligated in the entertainment tax, why do we not increase the amount of debt service that the entertainment tax is paying?
We will be. That's exactly what I said. The $1.5 million is going to continue to drop. It'll go down $1.4 million, $1.3 million, $1.2 million. So there will be more coming. Obviously, if you've got $150,000 for one time that we're talking about, the 150, that's against the debt service of $3 million plus. So it's 150,000 isn't that big a number in the scheme of things.
If you could help me with one final question. What's your best guess on the total between the operating subsidy at the convention center, the CVB? How does that stack up against what we were paying last year or what we're paying this year? What is the increased cost to the taxpayers of this change in contract?
That's the number we're trying to work out, and I really don't want to give you a number at this point because, frankly, like I say, we're working with it, and to try and compare the two numbers has been extremely difficult to untangle the can of worms.
And I understand you've had some problems getting that information, but keep in mind that this council is sitting here being asked to approve contracts and budgets, not knowing what those comparisons are.
Before you have to take action on this particular subject, you will have that information, and you will understand it in great detail.
Councilor Costello?
The extra, you said we're up $2 million in our entertainment tax fund.
Unobligated fund balance, not increase.
We can't prepay bonds, can we?
I don't know if we could call any of those bonds or not. No, there's no call provision.
Okay.
Councilor Brown?
Gene, if we look at the number that you talked about earlier, the subsidy of $498,124, Gary said the other night it was $600,000. But if we use your number, and if my math is correct, with $647,000 plus the $150,000 from the CVB, we're talking about $300,000 more in a subsidy this year. Does that sound right?
Your arithmetic is right. I don't know about the $300,000 because we don't have our handles on that $498,000. There are other line items below that, like I say, we have been having just a terrible time trying to segregate out what really happened under the terms of the old contract versus the new one. We know our numbers on the new one are good. We don't know what was going on at those old, we literally do not know who was paying what for what.
And this is, in the scope of things, minor, but I had a constituent ask me a question about, under the old contract, who paid the utilities? Under the new contract, who will?
Under the new contract, if you saw the chart up there, the city will be paying that.
That's what I thought.
What we're looking at right now is a net number that operates very similar to the way the pavilion operates. They'll get their subsidy, and that is it. And they go off and run the thing. That was not the case under the Hammonds transaction, and that's what's causing all the difficulty in understanding what happened before.
Thank you.
Councilor Benega.
Gene, with the unobligated funds, if you will, do we have a responsibility for a certain reserve amount for that bond indebtedness that we have to maintain as a reserve? Yes, we do, and those reserves are sitting in the CIP fund. They're not part of the $2 million? No. And what's that balance, do you know? Do you know what it is, Tom? The reserve balance that's sitting in the CIP? No, the reserve balance that we transferred to the sales tax.
Reserve balance is there. Our unreserved balance is there. That's the reserve that's in the entertainment tax.
There's $2.4 million there. So in addition to the $2 million, we have 2.4 in a reserve account for the bonds. Okay.
Memo has some figures from Gary Caldwell regarding the numbers for the CBB and the convention center, and you guys, I just mailed that out a few hours ago, so you should have some numbers from Caldwell as well as to the final figure.
Thank you, Deborah. It's possible some of the councilors haven't quite seen those. Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about comparing what's going on right now with the Hammonds in the past. But we did have 3 proposals for this, running this convention center. We had from Russ's organization and Hammonds, and then also from Global Spectrum. Were numbers ever run on all of those contracts to see what the end result would be?
There were some pro formas run by our consulting agent that we had that helped us in the selection of Global Spectrum.
Yeah. And we were told that Global Spectrum came out just way ahead of the other 2 bids. Is that correct?
Yes.
Gene, I'd just like to ask just a couple quick questions here that were emailed to me recently. Was the loss of the $200,000 for marketing mentioned? That's what the 4% of room rates at the Sheraton was?
The Sheraton was charging a 4% fee, room fee, that was being charged in the name of the City of Sioux Falls. The City of Sioux Falls never saw it. That's one of the things that we don't know about, and one of the factors that comes into play here. The Sheraton supposedly had another $400,000 that they were using to promote the convention center. We don't know how much of that really ended up in promotion or where it really went. As Terry says, there's been numbers of 4 to 6 sales staff at the Sheraton. We don't know how much time, I'm sure there was 4 to 6 people, but we don't know how much time those 4 to 6 people devoted to the convention center. Those are the kinds of things that are making it very, very difficult to compare.
Yeah, 2 other very quick questions here, and then I'll move over to Councilor Brown. And again, we do appreciate all the hours you spent on this. It's, I'm sure, been very difficult for everyone involved. Another quick question here. How about the fact that Hammonds paid for some of the operating costs, most of the staff, and 40% of the utilities? Then the second part of this question, I guess, is the city is going to pay for Global's non-reimbursed staff. Was that in the analysis? So we're still talking about analysis questions here, I guess.
I guess I don't know what non-reimbursed staff is.
Yeah.
The way, like I say, the way it's operating, the way the contract operates now is very similar to the pavilion in terms of how the funds actually operate. So Global Spectrum will get a fee somewhere between $108,000 and $216,000. That's it. The rest of it is running the convention center. All the revenue, all the expense, that's the way it shakes out. We don't know. The unknown factors are in the old contract. There were rentals for rooms. We guaranteed $225,000. I think it's $225,000, something right in that range. We guaranteed the Sheraton that amount of room rentals. Once the room rentals reached that point, we don't know what happened to them. We do know that we have more than one or two contracts that there is no room charge, no room rental. We're going to have to eat those. And those kind of things exist for the next 18 months. It'll run off. It'll be running down. But right now, there's more than a few of those that, like I say, they're just flat is no room rental. And we got 5% of the food and beverage under the old contract. Under this one, we get 30% of the food and beverage, and we get our room rent. Under the old one, we got 5% of the food and beverage. We got $225,000 that was guaranteed to us, and the number came in a little bit more than that, but not significantly. And we don't. Whenever they reach that point, in theory at least, they could give away the room, and the contract allowed them to do that. They can operate that way.
Councilor Brown.
Gene, Gary told us about that he has requested the audit of that 4% fee. Have we not audited that before?
It was looked at, in my understanding, before my time was the last time it was looked at. And I have no idea what the results were. Apparently, as I understand it, there was nothing found. But again, I don't know what was audited, what was looked at.
Councilor Stagers.
It seems like, from what we've heard tonight, that compared to the previous contract and this contract, we're going to be paying a lot more money in subsidy. How can this be better?
What you're looking at, in my opinion, is a business that was in trouble and it needs to turn around, and we have hired the right agents to turn that business around. And when you look at businesses, particularly corporations that are public or something like that, when you start to turn it around, it gets ugly. I went through it at Citigroup when we went through what referred to as the dark days in 89, 90, 91, when the real estate market crashed. We laid off a lot of people. We had to write off a lot of loans. We literally lost money, which the organization had never done. We turned it around in about 3 years, and it's now one of the most profitable institutions there is. So we've got a business here that, as Terry's talked about, we need to reintroduce the convention center and really start to maximize our return on that. We've got a turnaround situation. That first year is not going to be easy. Times are tough, but it will turn around. We've got some good forecasts that seem to make rational sense, and we're confident that those forecasts will be met.
Councilor Costello has a question.
In regards to the audit of the past, and Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we heard in the audit committee discussions that the audits were done in 2005 and 2003, and they pertain to the fee structure only. There were never any audits done. So in other words, were we paying the right amount and getting the right amount? There were never any detailed analysis on how that room tax was spent, which I believe is kind of the crux of the question today in regards to what's happened recently. But as far as this overall situation, I think we have to realize that, because of some of the lack of support or difficulties in communications between John Q. Hammonds and the group, we're probably working off some of these numbers that we really just don't know about. And I'm not sure that we really know what we were getting in terms of actual marketing of the convention center. And we know what we're going to get now. We're going to get 2 bodies, some travel time, some ads, and that. So that at least is a start. And it is troubling. I must admit, it is troubling that that we had somehow were able to compare 3 different offers without some of these numbers, and that is a little confusing. But we can move forward.
Councilor Benica has a question.
Not really a question. Maybe it is. In addition to what Pat has suggested, I think that the other thing that we need to realize is that we just sold a liquor license to Global for $155,000, which in the past was given to John Q. Hammonds. In the numbers that Scott presented and the numbers that I'm assuming that we're looking at tonight, we don't show that revenue in the net operating loss.
That's over in the general fund.
Right, but again, it's $155,000 regardless of how you look at it, that we had not recognized in the previous relationship.
That's true.
Would there be any other questions?
Madam Chairman, can Scott make a couple
I just wanted to kind of
Yes.
touch on what Kermit had asked. And what has happened in the past is the convention center has been booked as a complex. What we find when we come in, whatever the deals were in place beforehand are deals that we are honoring for clients. We're finding events that have no rent, minimal rent, for whatever reasons. But they were in the best interest of the complex. Now what we have to do, it's like Gene mentioned, when our marketing team gets in and we hit the streets, and I mean, we're a machine when it comes to marketing. We go out and we start booking things, adding revenues. What are you going to need with that? We built a yellow brick road last weekend for the Wizard of Oz theme, and people just to get excited about that generates that power. When you see our subsidy go down, it's because of the efforts of our sales team, because we're so proactive and just focusing on that one aspect. So that's part of why it seems like the subsidy is more. The revenues aren't quite there yet because we're not out in front of it yet. Once we get out in front of it, we're going to be flying. I know that's hard. It's that leap of faith we talked about, Kermit.
Because we've heard this before, especially in regard to the zoo. We were having difficulties with the zoo. Let's just give them a lot of money and things will be okay. Well, we're still giving them a lot of money.
You can check with the other facilities we run in this region and ask those local communities, those municipalities, what they think of Global Spectrum and how we've been able to perform. Like I say, 5 years ago when I joined Global, we had 22 facilities. We have 70 now, and it's not because we're getting rich off the management fee. It's because we do what we do well, and we want to grow our business. That's where we're successful.
Any other questions or comments among the team here? Scott, thank you for the additional comments. And Terry, did you have anything else as we're kind of finishing up our evening?
Would you like me to spend any time on the general CVB budget?
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question, Dee, about the $150,000?
Sure.
Looking at the salaries for the 2 sales managers at $50,000 apiece, I don't know what the market rate is for something like that, but $50,000 sounds pretty good.
I hope I can get them, because you have to remember we spend a tremendous number of hours. It isn't a 9-to-5 deal, and you're on the road a lot. The market for like an in-hotel salesperson right now will pay anywhere between $45 and $60, and that's in a hotel.
Councilor Brown,
I was actually concerned that you could get a salesperson.
I'm concerned too, but we're going to make our best effort at doing it. And if it turns out that I absolutely can't and I can hire one good one for a little bit higher and have to wait, I'd rather have one really good one than 2 mediums. So.
Okay, Terry, go ahead.
All right. Vanna White will pass out your pen.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Did he ride his motorcycle here tonight?
If you're Van, I want Chuck.
Thank you. And Terry, we're kind of planning on like around like 10 minutes or
Oh, no
less,
more
or-
than that.
Okay, thank you.
You give me the high sign if I start
Okay.
going over, will you?
Okay.
Please? All right. Okay, what I'd like to do is perhaps maybe a little bit different approach with you, to talk with you about the general CBB budget. I know that you've all heard me talk many times over the years about what we do and all the events and the numbers and such, and I provided those numbers for you in that packet so that you can all see, what we're booking, what the numbers are every place, and the exact budget that we are requesting from you for the general CBB budget. What I'd like to do is perhaps help you understand a little bit about what it takes to actually bring the business here, and why we have to spend the monies that we spend, that you see defined in this budget, time and time again in bringing the business to Sioux Falls. Please remember that the philosophy of the Convention and Visitors Bureau has been, since it was born in the early 70s, that we are here to represent the city of Sioux Falls, meaning the hotels, the attractions, the retailers, the events, the facilities, the service industry, and on and on and on in selling the community and therefore creating more economic benefit and economic growth for Sioux Falls. The example that I want to use for you tonight is the recent Lutheran Women's Missionary League Convention that was just here. Russ mentioned it. Almost anybody in town seems like they knew that the Jell-O-eating ladies were in Sioux Falls. We started that process in the year 2000. The Lutheran women of South Dakota decided they wanted to go for their national convention. So in the year 2000, we began meetings with those people. The first step that we had to take was to figure out if Sioux Falls, South Dakota facilities could handle up to 7,000 women. Did we have a convention center big enough? Did we have enough hotel rooms? Was there intercity transportation enough to move them around? Was there enough to see and do? Were there enough places for them to get out into the community and eat? And the list goes on and on. I brought this stack of folders here for you tonight, not because it was fun to drag them over here, but I wanted you to see that this is my file on just getting them here. This includes notes from all the meetings, from all the bids, coordinating with everybody to get that group to come to Sioux Falls. Once we had the meetings and we determined that Sioux Falls, South Dakota could house this group, the Lutheran women then had to choose between Rapid City and Sioux Falls. So we all got to meet in Chamberlain one day and do a full bid presentation, along with, of course, they're all smart, what would you like to host us for while you're in Chamberlain? Do you want to buy us lunch, or do you want to buy us a dessert and travel, or what? So there was an expense. Getting there was an expense. Putting together the bid meant talking to the convention center, making sure that they would have the books open, that the dates were available, that the pricing was right, literally putting up boards this big saying every meeting, every day could go in this room, this room, we can move them here, we could move them there, here's where the food would be served, etc. Talking to the bus companies, could we coordinate bus transportation for these women? Talking to all the hotels, do you have availability? What are your prices? Will you book it in for the Lutheran women at this price if this price won't work? Then we had to move to the police department to talk about the safety issue, because these are all women coming into a town they'd not been here before. We had to obtain permits for them to do different things in different areas of town. We had to coordinate with all the activities and attractions because the women wanted to go out amongst our town while they were here. So getting costs, coordinating what they could and couldn't do, what was available, what was not available. Providing city tours, so we'd sit and plan city tours. Getting tour guides, training them, paying them. Spouse programs, children's programs, planning overnights at the zoo, maybe dinner on the stage of the pavilion, getting costs, putting all those details together. Getting the media on board, because it was a very important factor for the Lutheran women to know that the media would cover their event. Getting back to all the hotels then, and the group, because the group said, we won't come to your town unless you will do all the housing reservations for us, coordinate everything with the hotels, plug in every single reservation, take care of all the money, and run it all through everything. We coordinated all that as well. Once they were going to get here, did we promise that we would be on site and do their registration, type their name badges, give them all the promo materials, have the buses set up out in front? Would we pay for the bus transportation? Would there be enough buses? Could we use the trolley as well? Coordinate with the trolley. See if we could get that at a discount price. What would it cost them? Be on site. Take care of details. One woman's husband had a heart attack. What do we do with that gentleman to get him immediate health care? Another one broke a tooth. Where do we go to the dentist? We need to rent copy machines. We need to have bags and bags of items that we're going to donate to your communities needy. So here are all these bags, and how do we have transportation to get them out to the needy all around the community? The list goes on and on and on. Those were all things that were initially discussed before we even went to Chamberlain to do the first bid to commit. We got everybody on board. We went there. The Lutheran women chose Sioux Falls. What happened next? We started planning with the Lutheran women. All right, here's the bid. We put all the prices together in writing. We put together bid books that look like this with every detail committed right down to every price, every signature, every invitation letter from every place, every room in town, what it would cost, how it would be booked. We then, after several meetings and several months later, traveled to San Jose. There we had to do hostings, we had to do a presentation. We had 30 South Dakota Lutheran women with us. We coordinated everybody to look right. We actually did a cheer across the stage about Sioux Falls, South Dakota, themed at This Side of Heaven 2007, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Put all that together, got that to happen at the convention, bid against the competition, 7 other cities in the United States, did the whole thing, met and met and met and met, stood up there, promised them all these things I just discussed. After they voted, we were fortunate enough to win. Came back to Sioux Falls, started planning, had 6 months of intense, long-time meetings. Now then, putting all these details into reality. When they arrived here, we were fortunate. They filled their registration up at 5,000. We had to stop them because there was no more room for us to get any more people in. We filled hotels within a 75-mile radius of Sioux Falls. We coordinated all those as well. We stood by their side until that convention was over. We coordinated with the convention center then, Russ and his team, everybody worked together. That's just an example of what it takes to bring something here. We bid it in 2000, and it happened in 2007. Now, I want to share that with you because I know that perhaps some of you don't understand really what it takes to bring a piece of business here. That's what we do every day. We look for groups like that where we can commit ourselves and step out and make all these things, be the hub, coordinate for all of Sioux Falls so that the entire city is filled to the best of our ability and can maximize the assets that we have in this town and create further economic development. Now, with that, I know you must have questions, but I really wanted you to understand how some of those processes work.
Any questions, councilors? Councilor Kavanaugh.
one of your income items is $10,780, cash flow Hammond's payment on principal. How much do they owe CVB?
I think they owe us, I can't remember, maybe another 10 years, 20,000 a year. Gene, would that be right? The city did a loan at the time that some kind of they did some sort of a deal with Hammonds at the time of the contract, and the deal was that Hammonds would have to pay that amount back to the city, but pay it to the CVB at $20,000 a year.
So your 9220 marketing and promotion, and then the 10,780, that's the total? That's
Correct. It's $20,000 a year.
You also have investment and other income of $10,000. What is your current fund balance right now?
Right around $500,000. Which is what we are told by our industry. We should have at least half of an annual budget kept in reserves in case of, look what happened after 9/11. Things dipped and we had to dip. And by the way, we will be dipping into those reserves this year to make these projects happen that I've been talking about tonight.
In terms of the 08 budget, you're requesting 150. I guess my question would be in out years, is that going to be a fairly stable amount, or can
The
we look at...
150? You
Pardon?
mean the 150, Kevin?
Are we
I
going to be
can't
approaching
really...
the 600,000?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to be approaching the 600,000 that was originally requested?
Maybe someday. I don't anticipate it to be this year or next year, or just depend, here's the other thing. Let's just lay this card out. I think it's time that we start looking at alternate funding mechanisms, and there have been some things that have been brought to my attention. Can we start taxing or putting a fee on different, I hate to name any this evening because it's only in discussion stages, but on perhaps some different businesses that are most directly affected by the visitor, and then perhaps that fee would come back to help fund some of this. The Rapid City situation where they just put a fee on every room, and that goes back to the Convention and Visitors Bureau for additional budget. So, Kevin, I think I know where you're coming from, and as the city grows, as the demands grow, as the competition grows, we'll have to make decisions if we want to remain in the business and be competitive or not.
Would there be any other, Councilor Stagers?
Yeah, Terry, I was interested in the success rate for the CVB.
Mm-hmm. If you look in your packet, you will find on the left side all kinds of numbers. The one that I would most draw to your attention would be the one called Number of Visitors to Sioux Falls 2006, where it explains the exact number of visitors and economic benefit that is generated. First of all, I will tell you that in 06, actual numbers that we could count, and honest to goodness, take files out and count, were that we had 2,178,069 visitors to Sioux Falls that we can count, totaling an economic benefit to the community of over $300 million in economic benefit. Now, if you look, Kermit, at your packet, you can look at book business by market segment, and you can see every single thing that's booked, when it's coming. You can look we have market segment, and we have for 06 and into 07. You can see numbers of groups are getting smaller and more because the large conventions right now, I don't know if it's gas prices or expenditures, are holding a little bit tighter. We've definitely been increasing in those bookings, Kermit. If you look at the Empire Mall and the Falls Park Visitor Information Centers, you can see the numbers on the charts of the number of visitations, number of actual visitors that we can actually count, which, by the way, is probably 1/3 of the ones that are actually in the park. Also, let's see, on one of these, you can see where we do our advertising and what it generates in visitor requests, and that is visitor packet request summary. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but there's a lot of numbers here that show the accountability. Additionally, you all receive every month a packet from us with our monthly numbers showing year-to-date as well as monthly reports as to all sales, lost business, pending, et cetera. Councilor Kavanaugh.
Terry, you show about $285,000 in Visitor Information Center income. Can you tell me what that is derived from, what that primarily is?
Sure. Now, what did I do with my budget here? Okay. Visitor center income at both visitor centers is if you have a space, a brochure space there, we charge you for that to help, number one, cover costs, and number two, to generate some additional income. So if Hotel X has their brochure down there, they pay an annual fee to have it there. We also gain partnerships like the one in the mall. The people who have their logos up at the top of the little sign at the mall pay us anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000 annually to help us fund those visitor centers.
So it's all derived from that. Any city revenue from that?
We get $100,000, as you can see, from the Parks Department to run the Falls Park Visitor Center.
So there is $100,000 out of that 285 that is from the city of Sioux Falls.
Correct. 101,920, Kevin. And when we first opened that, we were charged with selling merchandise to enhance the CVB budget. Councilor Benega?
Terry, just I guess a comment or a question. When the CVB does strategic planning, do you ever discuss the issue of a per room, per night support from the community to make your CVB more financially stable, if you will?
It has certainly become a topic within the last year.
Has that ever been brought to the legislature?
Not on behalf of Sioux Falls.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions regarding the Convention of Visitors Bureau and our great city? Councilor Stagers.
Yeah. Terry, when you go out to these different organizations and present to them and present bids and so forth, what percent do you get?
You know, that's a really good question. I will tell you, we're really picky about when we travel and when we don't, because we're kind of tight with our budget, making sure we're spending it right. So we qualify those leads before we ever leave town. We do a tremendous amount of pre-work to make sure that we are seriously in the running. And then we go. And when we go, we rarely come home with a loss. We are known to work very hard. When we go out on the road, we bring the business home. We don't lose very much when we bid.
Councilor Costello.
Terry, I don't have a question. I'd just like to tell you that I know there's a couple other retailers in the audience, but last week during the ball tournament, we had our highest sales week for Fuddruckers since opening of May of '91.
Oh, my goodness. That's wonderful. We've had a lot of calls from business people, and they were just blown away. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Jameson.
Well, all of us have said we live in a great city, and I think we'd be foolish if we didn't market it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Terry, thank you very much for being with us again tonight. I know you've been working very hard, too. And Russ, did you have something you wanted to share with us here? Rusty Curtains?
I did, just a clarification, just so the audience out there and possibly some of you understand. Several questions were asked of me in regard to the Hammonds and the Sheraton. I don't represent nor have ever represented the Sheraton Hotel,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that
I
everyone
can turn to
understood.
you because you're part of my team.
Russ,
No, I
thank
know
you.
that.
Russ, thank you for that clarification. We will adjourn our budget hearings for tonight. And again, I would like to remind the listening audience that starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and again Sunday morning at 8 a.m., our 3 days of budget hearings will be rebroadcast. And thank you, councilors, for being here again tonight with us. And thank you, staff, and thank you, listening audience. So good night.